Demons lurk inside the minds of developers after they've worked on a dark and twisted title for years. I'm Veronica Belmont, and in episode 23 of Qore, presented by the PlayStation Network, we're going into the belly of the beast at Sony's Santa Monica studios. We'll take a look at how they created the massive scale and stunning visuals with game director Gigasword.
I think it's gotten to the point where our in-game model on God of War 3 is better than the high-res cinematic.
We're also bringing all of our driving skills to the tracks with BlackRock Studios' upcoming title, Split Second Velocity. Set against a reality TV backdrop, this revved-up racer lets you unleash Hollywood-style destruction right in the competition's face. From blockbuster dynamite to high-tech revolution, 3D is poised to transform your living room.
We do have PS3 and 3D there ready to play.
So we'll take you to Sony's 3D TV labs in the Bay Area for a peek at the technology's past, present, and future. Then it's London tally-ho as we hit up Blitz Arcade for a look back at the PS3's first 3D title, Invincible Tiger. Next up, 3D goes retro. Join us as we head to the delightful Dotnia Kingdom in 3D Dot Game Heroes. This pixelated playground might be just the perfect marriage of modern tech style and old-school gaming charm. And speaking of charming, Audrey Cleo satisfies your Blu-ray appetite.
This month, we're also casting a spotlight on one of our favorite Blu-ray releases so far this year, and it comes with a whole buffet of extra goodies. Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs is loaded with so much visual tastiness, you'll want to watch this with a napkin handy. We've also got the latest must-have titles you need to swing into spring.
All this and more in episode 23 of Qore, presented by the PlayStation Network. I'll see you on the inside. Mortals bow down. God of War 3 has not only lived up to, but ascended beyond our titanic expectations. So just how did the development team at Santa Monica Studio manage to pack all this epicness into one game? We met up with game director Stig Asmussen and lead combat designer Adam Poole to find out how they killed it with Kratos in round 3. Let's talk about the Titans, because they play a huge role in this game, and I'm not using the word huge lightly. They're like environments in and of themselves. How was it like working with that kind of scale?
It's tough. You look at them and are they a character? Are they an environment? Actually, they're kind of a mishmash between the two. And we have to incorporate level design aspects. What's Kratos doing on these creatures? How do you make the gameplay interesting? Do we want to set up puzzles on them? Do we want to spawn enemies on them? But at the same time, it's not just a level. It's not just a static level. It's a living, breathing creature. In order to make it authentic, the creature needs to be responding to you, talking to you, thinking. I'd never seen that done before in a game, and it was really hard to kind of incorporate that into a believable experience because we had nothing to draw off of. We separated an army from our team, about 50 people, and said, you guys are working on the Titans.
It was a lot of hard work of us basically creating a boss battle on a living, moving environment. You're dealing with the audio team, the animation team, the environment art team. Everybody has to rethink how they design and how they work with these systems because it's not a static environment anymore. You have to deal with the creature deciding to move their arm wildly, but you're a speck on that arm, and how are you going to transition and deal with a boss while you're on that moving environment?
God of War 3 is actually this team's first PS3 title, but their experience with the first two God of War games proves they have the skills to pay the bills. Everything in the game looks fantastic, from wrinkles on war-weary Kratos to the searing flames of Hades. So how exactly does everything look so great in this debut game for the PS3?
Well, we put a stake in the ground. We said that we were going to do all of our cinematics in-game, and because of that, it forced us to really look at the Kratos model and make him look as good, if not better, than the high-res models that we used in the past. So we had to incorporate techniques of finding ways to pack as much texture resolution in them and as many polygons. We're doing blended normal maps, which kind of allow, as Kratos kind of bends and flex, you'll see his veins pops and you'll see kind of the nuance in his facial features, wrinkles, that kind of thing. I think it's gotten to the point where our in-game model on God of War 3 is better than the high-res cinematic model that we used in the past, and I'm very happy with it. As far as environments go, one of our philosophies has always been every step you take, you're going to see something new. You're going to see, our game is truly handcrafted. Every step you take, you're going to be going through an area that an artist spent a lot of time on. And that's all about the attention to detail.
I'm so proud of the way that Kratos turned out. His character was fully realized in this game. He's a killing machine, and if anything gets in his way, it's going to get destroyed.
Kratos is one mean mofo and kills everyone in his path. But after tearing the gods a new one, we admit we surprisingly kind of felt sympathy for this character, who really is a bad, bad man.
If you play the game, you'll find out that there actually is something redeeming about him. He might appear on the surface to be this sociopath, but he's not. He feels guilt for being tricked into murdering his family, but it's kind of his own fault. And how much of the guilt is actual guilt and how much of that is actually him just being mad that somebody's making him feel like crap and wanting to do something about it. His motive is simple. I mean, he's out for revenge. And his biggest flaw, I think, is just his need for power. That's what his downfall was, is that he wanted to be the best on the battlefield, and he put everything above that. And that's what allowed the gods to kind of start pulling the strings. And it's power is his fatal flaw.
Do not deny me my revenge!
These aren't the gods of old. These are Greek gods 2.0. To help give color to their distinctive personalities, the development team layered the gods with modern sensibilities and traits.
We've got to make it interesting. I think if you want to watch the History Channel, you're going to watch the History Channel. We try to have fun with it. It's more of kind of a over-the-top theatrical approach, and they need to be memorable.
The power of the sun!
And using modern archetypes works because everybody gets that.
Kratos, where are you off to today? Kill any family members lately?
We actually treated the dialogue for Hades differently than we did for the rest of the gods. He has more of a modern accent.
Kratos, so glad you could carve out some time for us.
He doesn't speak in what we call regal, which is more of the kind of British accent that you find. Because he's the ruler of the underworld, and the underworld is a different place. He uses a lot of modern phrases and that kind of thing, and we really wanted to separate him from the rest of the pack.
Your pain is my pleasure.
In the first two God of War games, players didn't always use the full arsenal that Kratos was packing, which sucks because they're all so awesome.
We made a goal early on in this game to say, well, let's try to get every single weapon in the game on the controller, and you easily switch through them on the fly. And we saw a little bit of that at E3. You didn't have to go into any menus or anything, and we saw people using the other weapons more.
There are specific enemies. The most basic example is a shield grunt. Your blades aren't going to really do anything. No matter what specials you do, you're not going to be able to break that shield. The most obvious thing is let's switch to the heaviest weapon, the most powerful weapon you have, which is the cestus. As soon as you start hitting that shield grunt, he starts reacting. His shield starts heating up, getting hotter and hotter. Then you can shatter it. We have multiple examples like that in the game that allow you to play with the combat system more, and we kind of push the player hey, this enemy's a lot easier if you use this weapon, or you can really take advantage of them with this other weapon. And it really helps the player explore the combat system, because there's all these layers of depth that we have in it that I think a lot of players tend to miss when they're playing. But I think now that we've encouraged it that much more, everybody's playing like a top tier hardcore player.
Kratos rips through enemies in a bloody festival of carnage. But when you really want to bleep them in their bleep bleep, the QuickTime events deliver hardcore, ass-kicking finishing moves that are genuinely eye-popping. Quite literally. Just in case you're not up to speed on how video games work, you gotta hit that button indicated at just the right time to pop the top on that can of whoop-ass. Miss the button, and you're toast. Each event fits the enemy perfectly, and each one is delightfully brutal. And they never get repetitive. What we want to know is, how did they keep everything so fresh?
Whenever we do a QuickTime event, there's a lot of research that goes into it. We sit in a room, animation, combat design, me, design director, we all sit down and we kind of try to figure out, well, what is Kratos doing to this character? What is the most effective way to take this character down? We start thinking about that when we're concepting the character. We see things when we're concepting the character that might be need to impale this part of the creature and use it against them. And it depends on the character. If you look at something like the Chimera, part snake, part goat, part lion, we really wanted to sell the fact that with each event, it's losing that portion of itself. So when you cut the snake off on the first portion of it, you're almost kind of neutering the character to a certain extent. That's kind of gross, but I mean, the character responds to that, and it kind of feels it's pissed at that point, and then it's fighting like it's got nothing left, and it's the lion portion, and Kratos goes up and basically attacks the mane of the lion, which is the main part of that character, and at the end, with the goat, he actually pulls the goat's horn off and rams it right through his skull.
Once you see that circle pop up, or when you have the opportunity to go in these QuickTime sequences, then it's all about creating a cinematic experience and how can we really tell Kratos' personality and his story.
The scale, the gore, the brutality. It's still hard to imagine how the mere mortals at Sony Santa Monica Studio could conjure up such an inventive and delightful way to rip deities limb from limb, but we sure are glad they've shown us a light. Be sure to try our interactive demo of how the QuickTime events bring the pain in God of War 3. Now's your chance to send Poseidon down to sleep with the fishies. Think you're trigger happy enough to keep up with our turbo thumbs as we play God of War 3? As soon as you see a button appear on screen, push or mash it as appropriate to unleash the wrath of Kratos upon the very first boss. Oh, and spoiler alert, if you don't want to see the first boss battle just yet, you might want to skip this altogether. how would a racing-focused reality TV show of the future light up your screen? Well, let's just say this ain't your daddy's racing game, or your mama's reality TV show. We headed to BlackRock Studios in the lovely little seaside town of Brighton, England, just south of London, to check out the explosive Split Second. Okay, race fans, you know the feeling. When you're neck and neck with the competition and you finally think you've got things under control, well, you can forget it. With the press of a button, the environment can go from a regular road track to a smoke-filled, rubble-strewn disaster area. And if you want to win the season, you're going to have to dodge danger while dropping destruction on your opponents. In all the footage I've seen, it's kind of like you're racing through a giant Hollywood set with explosions going off and buildings crashing down. How does that fit into the storyline of the game?
Well, really, that's where the idea came from, was what if you could race through a massive Hollywood action movie. We want to put players bang in the middle of the greatest action sequences they've ever seen. Now, if you imagine a massive primetime TV show with an enormous budget where they've built a set that is actually the city and they've rigged it to blow.
It's kind of the ultimate reality show. Do they have spectators in the stands, or is it purely just on TV?
It's purely just on TV, yeah.
That would be kind of dangerous, wouldn't it?
Kind of.
Yeah. The developers at BlackRock were behind the wheel of the phenomenally fun Qore last year. They've taken the lessons learned from Qore and basically blown them up big time for Split Second. One lap around and there's no doubt this fast-paced action racer is inspired by classic big-budget Hollywood action movies. Qore was a huge game, and I mean, the fans really loved it. What did you learn from that experience and kind of take into the creation of this title, and what feedback from the fans did you also integrate?
I think the big thing we got from Qore as a studio was we realised that it's all about focusing on what's important to the game and making it as good as possible. So, same kind of thing with Split Second. We've just tried to identify what is it that's important to the game. Obviously, it's visual effects, car handling, that kind of stuff, and just really focus on getting those elements as good as possible and not try and do everything, because when you do that, you get an average game. Well, as you go through the season, you'll be driving muscle cars, sports cars, and really, really big pimped-up trucks. But each one has a slightly different gameplay experience. A truck's a lot safer than a supercar, for example. We felt that a lot of racing games had the same layouts, every single one. It's really quite hard to tell them apart. And a lot of the information you don't really need, so that's why we've stripped out things like best laps and speedos, because you don't really need to know about them while you're racing.
But the tracks will be the stars of this TV show. With a fully charged power play meter, you can trigger uber explosions that range from bombastic bridge explosions to jumbo jet crash landings that scream right down onto the racecourse. Split Second is a true arcade racer, and since you'll undoubtedly want to blow up your friends before they get you, we're going to show you exactly how it works. Destroying the set is achieved by earning power plays that trigger varying levels of destruction. Drifting, drafting, jumping, and slipstreaming all add to the power meter, located just beneath your car. As your meter begins to fill, you can trigger smaller events indicated by the blue icon that appears over your opponent's head. Keep your eyes peeled, because when you see that icon, you'll only have a split second to hit the button. And boom goes the dynamite. Wait for your meter to peak out to trigger the big-time demolitions, indicated by this arrow. Now you see it. Now you don't. We just went from road race to roof race. By dropping the hammer with one of these bad boys, you'll actually alter the course for the remainder of the race. It's easy to revel in your godlike powers of destruction, but don't forget, you aren't the only one packing these powers. The AI opponents are ruthless, which lead to an action-packed, white-knuckled race every time you hit the track. With Qore, BlackRock proved it understood how to nail that fun factor. With devastating explosions that change the track so each lap races differently, Split Second stands out in the crowded racing game genre. Avatar opened in theaters in December of last year, and the world's eyeballs collectively popped. Suddenly, everything seems to be going 3D. Movies, television, and yes, even video games. This may seem like brand spanking new technology, but believe it or not, people have been experimenting with 3D since the mid-1800s. It all started with stereoscopic photography. Fast forward about 150 years, and we seem to be on the cusp of some major new 3D age. Surprisingly, the basic technology behind shooting 3D hasn't changed much since the beginning. What has changed is how we view 3D and how it's presented. So, what does this all mean for you and your beloved PS3? Join us as we explore everything you need to know about the third dimension. Our first stop is the UK, home to one of the world's leading 3D experts, Andrew Oliver, of Blitz Games Studios. They recently released Invincible Tiger, the first 3D title on the PS3. We wanted to learn more about what to expect from 3D as it transitions to the home.
We naturally see the world in 3D, and that's what everybody knows. But what most people don't really think about is each eye sees a two-dimensional image of the world, and it's our brains putting two separate images together that gives us our sort of three-dimensional world that has depth to it. What we found when we wrote Invincible Tiger, we put in the two cameras. Now, obviously, it takes twice as much processing. We're actually now creating two views for every single view. It just means that we have to try harder now to create a more believable world, or our brains look at it and say, there's something wrong with that view. But back in the 50s, there was the idea that you could give two separate images by putting it through coloured filters. It did give you the perception of depth, but it also destroyed all the colours. Whereas we're now getting technology that allows you to look at one screen and see two distinct separate images which are perfectly aligned. Your brain says, that's 3D.
Now, a classic side-scroller may not scream in-your-face 3D gaming, but it pops off the screen in vivid detail and really comes alive. We had to find out more, so we decided to pay a visit to David Coombs at Sony's 3D TV lab to get the scoop on how it's all coming together.
3D technology has been around for a very long time. Why is it just now becoming popular?
Because we now have high enough resolution and fast enough refresh rate on an LCD monitor, it makes it possible for us to do the separation. What we're doing is we're sending a picture at 240 frames a second, which is fast enough that the eye can't see the flicker, and then we use flickering glasses to send the correct image to the left and right eyes.
It seems online there's a lot of confusion and misinformation going on about 3D technology and all the different standards involved. What can you tell us? How does the whole thing work and come together?
Yeah, last summer the TV manufacturers got together and came up with a format, HDMI 1.4, that allows all of the TVs to work with all of the Blu-ray players and the PlayStation 3 and all the other peripherals, and that will make it a very clean and smooth experience for the consumer.
It must be really hard to explain to people how good 3D looks if they're not sitting here in the room with the glasses on.
Exactly, it's something you have to experience rather than just try to understand.
Okay, 3D clearly rocks, but we decided to take it to the street to find out if 3D is finally here to stay, or if it's just a dream. Well, if there's one place dreams come true, it's Vegas, baby. You probably think of bright lights, pool parties, and hangovers, but we think CES. That's right, the Consumer Electronics Show is where the big boys strut their stuff for all the world to see. This year, 3D was big. Really, really big.
We're here at the Sony booth at CES 2010 taking a look at their brand new 3D TV technology. It's going to bring that whole movie viewing experience right into your home living room.
But is 3D really ready for prime time?
You know, we at Sony, we wanted to bring the customer the full HD experience with 3D, and that's why we use this active shutter system. So we're going to give you the 120 hertz and full 1080p high-def 3D in each eye. That's what it's all about.
All right, you've heard it from Sony, but will 3D TV truly blow us away like 3D in the theaters?
Oh, it was actually a great experience. I was really surprised how great it is compared to the theater. It's about the same quality.
Amazing. Yeah. Really, I have never experienced it, and it's super amazing.
Seeing the quality of that one, I was actually really impressed. Normally it seems a little jarring when you see stuff in 3D, but it actually just seemed to flow really nicely.
I was very skeptical, I'll be honest, and as I use it, I kind of see the power of it. It's as an immersive technology. So the idea is it's more real, right? And it seems to work.
Is this something you would want to have in your own home?
Oh, most definitely. Can't wait to have it.
Well, it looks like 3D is finally ready to come home. Want to get in on the action? Here's what you'll need. A 3D-ready TV that supports the HDMI 1.4 standard? Check. The Sony PS3 3D firmware upgrade scheduled to come out this summer? Check. Active shutter glasses? They'll probably come with the TV, but you may want to buy an extra pair, just in case. And of course, the games. Here's a little sneak peek at what's coming. 3D is here and it's awesome. And the really good news? It's looking like one day soon we won't even need the glasses. But remember, this is just the beginning of what's to come. So keep your eyes peeled for a mountain of 3D content headed your way soon. From the shocking scale and brutality of God of War 3 to the emotional roller coaster ride of Heavy Rain, the PlayStation 3's blockbuster games have kept us in a dreamy state of sensory overload lately. But we think it's about time for a little old-school diversion. Enter From Software's charming homage to a simpler time, 3D Dot Game Heroes. With delightful visuals, spot-on classic gameplay, and some clever little touches, there are a lot of reasons why this game is the perfect way to scratch that 8-bit itch. Once upon a time, in a boring 2D land far, far away, the king of Dotnia decided to make his outdated domain a little more spicy. He declared the age of 3D, and with a little help from the PlayStation 3, voila! The world and all of its inhabitants were given the glorious gift of a third dimension. 3D Dot Game Heroes, we love you. While everything from the geometry, animations, and textures remains intentionally simplistic, it's all presented with just enough visual flair to remind you that it's running on PlayStation 3. Sunlight bounces and shimmers on the surface of water, the world is aglow with bloom lighting and lens flare, and a dynamic depth of field effect gives everything a polished next-gen appeal. It's a mashup of two vastly different technologies, and it gives us that nostalgic, tingly feeling of childhood gaming goodness. But before embarking on this grand quest, you have to pick your hero. Select from a wide variety of kooky characters, but how can you resist building one from scratch using the game's clever character editor? It takes time to get used to the 2D meets 3D style, but once those creative juices start flowing, you'll whip up a mighty hero all your own, block by block. You can even create simple 2-frame animations for walking, attacks, and even a celebration pose for those moments when you find a treasure chest filled with booty. Give your character a name, and it's time to hit the kingdom of Dotnia to slice some baddies into tiny dots. Go get 'em, Mustachio! 3D Dot Game Heroes plays like a pure classic action RPG, but with just enough added depth to make it fresh. And that is exactly what we were hoping for. The world is open, yours to explore, albeit screen by screen with an appropriately old-school 4 degrees of motion. But you can't access everything right away. As you visit the many towns, march across the grassy plains, dusty deserts, fiery cliffs, and delve deep into the many mysterious puzzle-filled temples, you'll see areas you can't reach until you find a certain item. See a crack in the wall? You'll need a bomb before you can see what lies on the other side. Of course, exploration is only part of the fun. With so much evil plaguing Dotnia, there are many monsters in your path, and you'll need quite an arsenal to survive. There's all kinds of dot-kicking weapons and gadgets to discover, like the boomerang, bow and arrow, magic spells, and bombs. But the real combat happens with your trusty sword and shield equipped. There are a whopping 24 different weapons, and each can be upgraded in attributes of length, width, and more. Some have special properties, like the Luck Mallet, which greedily pounds the cash from your enemies as you crush their heads. But our favorite is the mighty Gigasword. When fully upgraded, this magnificent blade will clear an entire screen and then some with just one swing. Now that's real ultimate power. Regardless of the size of your sword, you won't be saving someone tiny without collecting the 6 orbs scattered throughout Dotnia's temples. To do that, there's another weapon you'll need, your brain. Just navigating these dungeons can be mind-numbing. As you progress, those temples get more complicated, and those dot beasts get a whole lot meaner. And yes, guarding each of the orbs is a big, bad, blocky boss, so try to save those healing potions before you bring it. Oh yeah, it's been brought. If this all looks and sounds suspiciously like a game you may have played already, it's for a reason. 3D Game Heroes is one big fat homage to Nintendo's original NES game, The Legend of Zelda. As that game once did so well, 3D Game Heroes teases you with visible hints and drives you to explore every corner of the world. Its dungeons require quick reflexes, as well as your thinking cap. Its pacing is just right, with a perfect balance between open-world gameplay and a linear story arc. And nothing is handed to you on a platter. You don't have a quest log, your map doesn't have a detailed key, all you have is your will and determination to save the day. My, how things have changed. Put simply, there is no better way to re-link to the nostalgic years of gaming's past, or to experience the joy of 8-bit gaming for the first time, than by playing 3D Game Heroes.